What is going on, everybody? This is just a 15-minute video of us completely tearing down what we call a fluid end and the amount of teamwork that goes into it. We all are familiar with the fluid end, and it took me about 2 weeks to know the ins and outs, and that's pretty quick. And just not building and tearing down, but also troubleshooting them, determining whether or not they are capable of having parts replaced, to put them back in service, and determining if the damage that is done to the fluid end is so severe that we are not able to put back into service. These things, we're running around 3,900 psi through these fluid ends, which is a lot of pressure. I think it only takes like 14 or 1,600 pounds to crush a car. So the amount of pressure that these things can tolerate is absolutely mind-blowing. And 3,900 pounds of pressure is actually pretty low for these ST9 valves. Right now, what I'm doing is using a hammer wrench to remove what we call the side caps, and I'll go into further detail as that goes along. I wanted to speed it up, but it kind of takes out the aspect of what's going on and how we're all working together. The guy on the far left, he's using what we call a packing rod, and he's using that to remove the packing nuts that kind of surround the plunger. And he's doing that while I'm working the hammer wrench to remove the side caps. And the guy in the middle, he's my supervisor, and he is using a speed wrench to actually remove the side caps, or the end caps, that I loosened up earlier for him with the hammer wrench. Right now, I grabbed another packing rod to remove what we call a hub on top of the fluid end, and inside of that hub there's a transducer that's placed to read certain kinds of different readings. And now I am using the speed wrench to remove the side caps, and this really portrays the importance of taking care of your equipment, because these things have been sitting outside for several weeks, and these end caps should not require the full weight of my body to actually take those out, because it's called a speed wrench for a reason, right? So my guy on the left, he's continuing to use the packing rod to remove the packing nuts, and my supervisor in the middle, in the white hat, he's using that other packing rod that I grabbed earlier to remove that hub I was talking about that holds the transducer. I went ahead and grabbed a crush cap puller. We call that a helicopter. The nickname for that is the helicopter. And what I'll be doing is these crush caps are placed under the end caps and the side caps that I used a hammer wrench to pull earlier. As I said before, I wanted to make this video. I wanted to speed it up, but I wouldn't have been able to commentate as well as I am now, since it was going to be such a quick video. And the only reason why I wanted to make this video was to kind of put into perspective the amount of teamwork that goes into actually tearing these apart or repairing them. This is actually, we're actually taking our time with this as well. As you can see, we're all kind of relaxed. We're still moving with a purpose, but slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So me and my supervisor are my supervisor grabbed a magnet to remove the valves that are under those crush caps that I used a helicopter to pull out. I removed the hub just right there that holds the transducer. we needed to remove that. That way we can get to the other crush caps, and then we can use that helicopter to go ahead and yank those out. Now, after my guy on the left completely removes those packing nuts with the packing rod, we can go ahead and pull those plungers out. And it's we're actually pulled it out the wrong way because, you know, since there's not a drive end, that's basically a big motor, diesel motor that's connected to a transmission, and that transmission is connected to these plungers. Usually that's connected to this fluid end, and we wouldn't be able to pull it out the way we did today. So that was a packing nut that my guy on the left just pulled off. My supervisor in the white hat, he's continuing to pull out the valves and the springs. That was my guy on the left trying to see if he can't just yank out the plunger. Like I said, it's the wrong way. Usually we would push it through the fluid end and take it out on the way we're facing the fluid end. And right now we would take it out on the right hand side. Right now I have no clue what I'm doing. Well, we'll find out what I have if I can see in my hand. Oh, I'm using that speed wrench to take off the remaining side caps. There's 5 in total, 5 side caps and 5 end caps on the top. My supervisor is using the helicopter again to remove the crush caps on top so we can gain access to the valves and springs in that part of the fluid end. Now, like I said before, this is not really coordinated. We're not designated to just one job on the fluid end. We're all familiar with it, and if it was me on the plunger side, which is the left side of this fluid end, then I would be the one yanking out those plungers like my guy is on the left. It's just we kind of been together for a little while. We kind of know who's holding which tool, and depending on which tool we grab, that's the job that we get. And it's not like my supervisor tells me, oh, you're grabbing the speed wrench and the hammer wrench, and I'm operating the helicopter, and my guy on the left, you're on the packing nuts and the plungers. It doesn't work that way. We just kind of see where we can fit in on an open spot, and we take over and we just do our thing. We all with each other. As you can see, we're still flowing with each other. We're not stepping on each other's toes. We're not in each other's way. And one of us isn't standing around for the most part waiting on the other guy to finish up what we're doing. That way we can take the next step in whatever that step would be. Except my guy on the left right there. He's tired from yanking out those plungers. Those plungers are made of solid tungsten. Those are probably 30 to 36 inches in height. So like just short of 3 feet or at 3 feet. And they're probably about 4 inches in diameter. So they're not very big, but since they're solid tungsten, they're extremely dense, and since they have a high density, they are extremely heavy. They're probably around 80 to 85 pounds per plunger. What I'm doing on the right, I was trying to use the helicopter to yank those crush caps out, but I mean the fluid end is sitting so low on the pallet that every time I try to spin the helicopter, the handle hits the wood on the pallet. But you know, I didn't want to wait around to find another solution to it. There's a sledgehammer just to my right. I was just going to use that sledgehammer to smash the wood on the pallet. That way I have the clearance, but the wood was pliable enough to where I could just force the handle in a clockwise fashion. That way I can get that crush can out. So whenever you're in a situation like this, you have to find quick solutions to small issues like that. my supervisor thought that the other helicopter had shorter handles, so it would have more clearance. So that's the only reason why I switched that out first, because it would have made it a lot easier. If the wood wasn't as pliable as it was in this situation, then I would have just grabbed that sledgehammer and then just smash that wood and get it out of the way. That way I can complete that task. So non-conventional, but still a quick decision and very effective. I distinctly remember thinking that. So right now he's showing me the kind of like the ballpark way of estimating the strength of a spring. He told me to feel 2 different springs and feel the differences, and he asked me to pick which one felt like it was still reusable, and apparently I picked right because he threw the other one away. Right now, sometimes those plungers are seated so well inside of the fluid end that it takes a little persuasion to actually get that out, and that's what my supervisor and my guy on the right was working on. Right now I'm working on pulling out the valves on the bottom end of the fluid end, and my guy on the right is removing the remaining crush caps. I couldn't get the valve out of the fluid end with my magnet, and I was trying to yank it out with my hand, but there was grease in there and I couldn't unseat that valve. That's when my supervisor on the left, Greg, just grabbed that packing rod, and he was like, "Let me show you a quick trick." He grabbed that and just started hammering on that valve that's inside of the fluid, and then it knocked it loose. And that's not a big deal, because valves are one of the many pieces that we replace on these fluid ends on a regular basis. So him causing any damage on that valve, hitting it as hard as he was, wouldn't be that big of a deal, because we would probably end up replacing the top and the bottom valves in that situation anyway. So that part is a-okay. Alright, my guy on the right ended up getting that last crush cap out, so I'm working on getting out the valves that's sitting on the bottom end. My supervisor on the right is working on getting that packing off of the plunger, because later on we're going to be inspecting these plungers, and if you can imagine what 85 pounds of solid tungsten would cost, and I wish I could answer it for you. I'm gonna look it up after I get done with this video, but they're super expensive, I know that. So we're gonna remove all the pieces off of the plunger, clean it up, and visually and physically inspect them. Now we're reaching the end, toward the end of the video. So not very informative, because there's I know there's a lot of unfamiliar terms, and there's a lot of other information that needs to get poured into this video in order to understand what the fluid end actually does, where it leads to, how it actually generates that pressure, and the reasons why we troubleshoot and how to troubleshoot, and actually replacing the parts and putting it back together. So like I said before, this took us just a little over 15 minutes to do at a kind of relaxed pace, at a very relaxed pace actually. If we had to do a complete teardown and then rebuild it back up, that we can put it back into service, you would have to. Our target time is 20 to 30 minutes, and there's a lot of a lot more equipment that's attached to it than it is now, because this is just a fluid and you got to remember that there's other equipment that's attached to it. So I just thought it would be kind of cool to display the teamwork and the corroboration that is required with this simple task. We'll see you on the next one.